Good morning, everybody. Now, every so often, people open a conversation with me or leave a comment or ask what I think about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And up to now, I really didn't know too much about them. I heard of them 10 years ago or so. But I've just actually, over the last couple of weeks, been looking into them and actually got a tiny little bit of Bitcoin just to play around with it and see what it's all about. And there's a lot of excitement about it at the moment because the price has just gone up quite significantly this year. So people are very, very interested in it. Now, everything I say on this video here is not financial advice. So I'm not telling you, I'm not advising you what to do with your own money. You've got to decide for yourself what you do with your own money and do your own due diligence. So, you always should do that when you think about your own money and not take advice from someone you just see on the internet, which is me. So, you've got to make your own decisions about that. But I know there's been a lot of excitement this year and people are asking me about it more and more. What do you think? Is it the future? What's going to happen? Because obviously there's something very, very wrong in the financial sector in general. Obviously, being in politics, I can see that governments around the world are being grossly financially irresponsible when they're splashing out money like there's no tomorrow. And maybe there is no tomorrow because maybe, the system that we have is coming to an end. I mean, the governments around the world are piling up more debt than they can possibly ever pay back. The United States has now got over $30 trillion of debt. They're borrowing more money than they can afford just to pay the interest payments back on that. So people are looking for alternatives as a store of value. Gold and silver is being spoken about, physical gold and silver, and cryptocurrencies. And because the price of Bitcoin, which is this intangible asset, it was just invented 15 years ago. Well, from when I'm making the video, it was invented in 2008. So it's not a new thing. It's been around for some time. People have put money into it. People who put money into Bitcoin and bought Bitcoins 10 years ago, 15 years ago, have made huge amounts of money. They're now, Bitcoin millionaires because the price has gone up from less than $1 to, nearly $40,000 today. And at one point, it was up to nearly $70,000 for one Bitcoin, which is just this digital token that you can exchange. But it seems that most people are interested in it because they think, well, is the price of Bitcoin going to go up even more to $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million, and then they can make some more money if it goes up again? That's human nature, to seek things that are going to increase your wealth, so then you have more wealth to spend on yourself and your family and so on. So people are interested in it for that reason. People are also interested, in cryptocurrencies. There are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. Some of them are just junk, and some of them have had a lot of people put money into them over the last few years. I have a friend, a very good friend in the United States who swears by another cryptocurrency that is not Bitcoin. So she says, "Oh, get this thing." I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to influence anybody to make a decision. You've got to sort of figure this out and research it for yourself. But there's another one that I've looked into as well. So, is Bitcoin the future? Well, I've looked into it and I've come to a conclusion. And it may not be a conclusion that some of you like if you hear this from me. I don't think, personally, you can disagree with me, you've got to decide for yourself. I don't think that Bitcoin is the long-term future. I think it may have it may not have reached its peak yet. It may have more, running space to go. But the technology that it's built on, which is called blockchain, I think that definitely has a long-term future, and more people are coming in and putting money into things, assets, digital assets or cryptocurrencies that use blockchain technology. So why do I say that this Bitcoin, I don't personally think it has a long-term future? There's four reasons for that. Number one, it's slow. It's much slower than some of the other newer cryptocurrencies that have been built or developed since Bitcoin started. And Bitcoin's 15 years ago. It was incredibly innovative at the time. People bought into it. The price went up a lot. It's a medium of exchange, and it's now considered a store of value, but it's slow. I tried to send Bitcoin from one place to another. It took half an hour to show up, whereas I've looked into other cryptocurrencies, and it just takes a few seconds to go from one place to another. And Bitcoin is only going to get slower and slower. So that's one reason. Second reason is there are lots and lots of newer cryptocurrencies around, which are far more versatile than Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is only a medium of exchange. You can send it from one place to another. Some people accept Bitcoin for purchases, which is fantastic. Yeah, you will get a price probably in a fiat currency like dollars or pounds or euros, but you can pay a supplier of goods in Bitcoin, the equivalent amount of Bitcoin to your dollars or pounds or euros. For whatever goods you want to buy, and then people will, retail outlets and so on, businesses in some cases do accept Bitcoin as payment, and that's great. So it's been adopted as a payment method, but it can't do much else. I mean, other than the newer coins that you've got and the blockchains that they have. You can write apps on them, and there's all kinds of other financial instruments and things you can do with it. So you can loan money, you can borrow money, you can leverage money, and all these other kinds of things that I don't particularly understand. But you can loan money out and invest money with certain apps. They're called dApps apparently, which stands for decentralized apps. It's a word I never knew until last week. But you can't do that on Bitcoin, but you can do with some of the other cryptocurrencies. The second most widely used and invested cryptocurrency is called Ethereum. So Ethereum is much more versatile. You can actually you put apps on there, like you can download apps on your mobile phone. You can put apps on the blockchain. Now, I don't understand how that works and actually what that really means, but apparently that means there's many more things you can do with some other cryptocurrencies that you can't do with Bitcoin. Third thing is, it takes horrendous amounts of energy to sustain and mine a Bitcoin. So Bitcoins are created apparently in a process called mining, where people can get these machines that mine Bitcoin, and they do all kinds of complicated calculations in order to create a new Bitcoin. But the energy needed to create a Bitcoin is horrendous. It differs in different parts of the world because energy costs are different in different parts of the world. In the Middle East, energy is much cheaper than in Western Europe and North America. So actually, to mine a Bitcoin, to create a new Bitcoin in Western Europe, actually will cost you more in terms of energy than the value of a Bitcoin is worth. At the moment, a Bitcoin's worth about $35,000. But it will cost you over $40,000 equivalent in energy just to mine a single Bitcoin. So you have to put more in energy, as well as buying the machines and the computers to do the tasks to mine a Bitcoin, and they're not cheap. So it costs you more in energy to mine a Bitcoin than the price of a Bitcoin. So it's uneconomic. So people mining Bitcoins in Western Europe, they'll be mining them, holding on to them, hoping that the price of Bitcoin will go up to $100,000 or whatever. So if it does that, then they can make a profit. But you can't make an instant profit. If you're in the Middle East, it's, obviously energy is cheaper. It may only cost you $5,000 to $10,000 in energy to mine a Bitcoin. So you mine a Bitcoin, you sell it for $35,000, you make a profit. So people in those areas will probably, do that more. It's a way of making money there. But every so often there's something called a Bitcoin halving, and the next one's going to be sometime in spring 2024, apparently. And when that happens, the rewards for mining halve. So instead of it taking $40,000 of energy in the West to mine a Bitcoin, it's suddenly going to take $80,000 of energy to mine a Bitcoin. And when the next halving happens in 2028, it'll take $160,000 of energy to mine a Bitcoin. And then so on, $320,000, so on and so on. So by the year 2050, if we get there, it'll cost over $5 million of energy to create a single Bitcoin. The price is just going to be so high. Is the price of Bitcoin ever going to get to a high enough price that someone will carry on mining, and make a profit? I don't know. I doubt it. And if that happens, if it ever comes to the point where the price of Bitcoin stops going up because people are not buying Bitcoin anymore, because there's other newer cryptocurrencies that have more utility that people are investing in rather than Bitcoin, then the price of Bitcoin will just crash, because no one will want it anymore. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen imminently. I think it's still got some time to run. I don't know. But I'm just looking at it and thinking, well, logically, this doesn't make sense. It's not going to be able to continue. It's not sustainable because of the energy costs needed to mine Bitcoin, because it was set up to be created by people, creating it with these complex algorithms and so on that people need massive computational power to do. So that's another reason. The last reason is there's things going on that a lot of people haven't heard of in the financial sector. So there's a new standard for financial transactions called ISO 20022, which has just come into force this week. And that means that all the banks and financial institutions have to adhere to certain regulations in terms of transacting and sending money around the world and communicating in when they send money from one institution or nation or bank to another. They got to be ISO 20022 compliant. Bitcoin is not compliant, but there are some other newer cryptocurrencies that are compliant. So they're called XRP, which is Ripple, XLM, which is Stellar, XDC, which is Quant, and a few others. So I just heard of them recently. But apparently there are these newer cryptocurrencies which are compliant with these new standards. And what that means is that big money going into cryptocurrencies in the future are more likely to go into those other newer cryptocurrencies that are compliant with these new regulations than Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are not compliant because they're a bit older. So, I don't know. I can't tell the future. I don't know what people are going to do with their money, but it just seems that, there's this new setup, and it's going to encourage people to, when they come into cryptocurrencies in the future, big institutions in governments, if they get involved, will go to these newer coins or cryptocurrencies that are compliant with ISO 20022. And then there's something else called Basel III regulations, which is really going to make a big difference to the whole banking sector, because they're not going to be able to lend out money anymore that they don't have in store. So this is going to put an end or limit fractional reserve banking. Now, that's a whole other topic that I'm not going to go into. But fractional reserve banking is what actually means that our whole system is built on debt, essentially debt that we don't have assets for. So banks lend out money that they don't have. They don't have the assets for the money. They just create money out of thin air and lend it out, and then everyone has to pay them back with interest. So it's kind of like fantasy. The whole financial system we have is essentially a fantasy because of fractional reserve banking and people creating money out of thin air. That's a whole other topic to go into. But the Basel III regulations apparently are going to put a stop to this or curtail this greatly. So people are going to be looking at investing in real assets far more in the future, whether that's property or infrastructure or industrial plants, or gold or silver, or maybe cryptocurrencies. Who knows? I don't know. Again, as I said, this is not financial advice, but it's just things to think about. And for the future, because I know a lot of people are getting quite interested in it. And whenever the price of Bitcoin goes up, it starts getting into the mainstream media and headlines. It's like, oh, Bitcoin reaches a record high because it sells copy. It's interesting, and then people go, oh, that's good. I'm going to buy some, because I'm going to make some money, and people get excited about it. And that's sort of happening at the moment. But there you go. So I'm just making this because people are talking about it, they're interested in it, and I've just looked into it, and that's what I think. And I may be completely wrong. And because I'm new to this as well, I'm just looking into this. I'm looking at that Bitcoin. Does it have a future? Is it worth putting money into it? Is it worth putting? Not that I've got a lot of money, by the way. So I mean, I'm not going to be a Bitcoin millionaire. But or is it worth putting money into some of these newer things, these newer cryptocurrencies that are ISO 20022 compliant? So I'm looking into that and seeing, and people are thinking about this as well. So that's just my opinion, just my thoughts. It would be very interesting to actually to see what you think if you're watching this, and please do leave me a comment if you telling me what you think about this. What do you think about the whole financial system as it is? And in cash as well. I mean, I haven't mentioned cash. I'm obviously a big advocate for keeping cash, physical cash that you can use, because I think it's completely discriminatory to people if we get rid of cash. And I would always advocate for cash to be available and as a method of purchasing goods and services. So let me know what you think. It'll be great to read your comments. If you think I'm completely wrong, please say so. I shall. I'm happy on this topic to be told that I'm wrong. I don't have any emotional connection to it, so you can tell me what you think about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and all these new cryptocurrencies as well. Or if you agree, if I've made you think about things, do let me know as well. Again, this is not financial advice, so you shouldn't make any decisions just based on what I've said. You should do your own due diligence and make up your own mind about what you do with your money. But I hope that whoever you are prosperous. And it's been an interesting video for you to watch. And God bless you all.